All right, so we're going to look at another form of reasoning. In this kind of form of reasoning, remember we looked at inductive reasoning, which is all patterns. Deductive reasoning uses facts. So we're going to have these statements that are facts, and then we're going to use those statements to make a conclusion. So we're going to look at two different laws that we're going to use with deduction, law of detachment and law of syllogism. And then we're going to look at using those. So when we're looking at deductive reasoning, again, we're looking at facts, rules, theorems. Like these are, we're going to take a fact that we know, or a rule that we know, and we're going to apply that to make a conclusion. So it's not really considered a true or false conclusion. It's actually considered valid or invalid. A valid conclusion is that I've used that law of detachment or law of syllogism, those deductive reasoning laws, right. So we're going to have two of those, which we'll talk about. So what we're looking at here is we've got these facts to determine. Well, first we're going to look at changing or deciding if it's inductive or deductive reasoning. So again, inductive is patterns, deductive is facts, so or rules or those type of things. In Miguel's town, the month of April has had the most rain for the past 5 years. He thinks that April will have the most rain this year. So this is a fact that it had the most rain. You're looking at a pattern. So since this is looking at a pattern, this is inductive reasoning. All right, here's Sandra learned that if it is cloudy at night, it will not be as cold in the morning than if there is no clouds at night. So Sandra knows it will be cloudy tonight, so she believes it will not be cold in the morning. This is a fact of the clouds, so this is deductive. She's not looking at a pattern, she's looking at something she learned. So that's a deductive reasoning. So let's look at our law of detachment. So if we have a true if-then statement, so we're going to have this if P then Q, and it's a true statement, and P is true, then Q is true. So here's our statement: if car is out of gas, then it will not start. So if I have this condition happen, then using law of detachment, I can then conclude this will happen every time the if happens. So Sarah's car is out of gas. Her valid conclusion would be Sarah's car will not start. So with law of detachment, the if has to have come true. Then if the if is true, if the condition that we said is going to happen comes true, then I can make a valid conclusion that the then is going to happen. That's if this is a true statement. So if a figure is a square, then it is a parallelogram. The figure is a parallelogram. I didn't say anything about what is the condition if it's a parallelogram, so this is an invalid conclusion because the hypothesis was not met or true. Right? I need to have, for law of detachment, I need to start with this condition happening. Then I can conclude that it's this. So that didn't happen, so that's an invalid thing here. So if a polygon is a convex quadrilateral, then the sum of the interior angles is 360. So I need this if convex quadrilateral to happen. So ABCD is a convex quadrilateral. So now I can conclude the sum of the interior angles is 360. Nothing else, just what it says. That's valid because the if came true, so I concluded the then. We made the conclusion of the then. All right. You can kind of look at it with Venn diagrams. Determine whether the conclusion is valid based on the given information. If not, write invalid. We're going to explain the reasoning for in Venn diagram. If a triangle is equilateral, then it is a acute triangle. The triangle is equilateral, then the triangle is acute. So we have this section of acute triangles, and in there is equilateral. So this happened. This condition was met, so then I could conclude the acute. So this is valid. So the conclusion is valid. Okay, if a figure is a square, then it has 4 right triangles. So I need this if part. A figure has 4 right angles. I can't conclude that it's a square because I have to have the hypothesis figure is a square to come true. So this is invalid using law of detachment. So could have it be a rectangle. So the next law, the second law of detachment that we're going to go over in last is law of syllogism. So law of syllogism uses 3 total, it uses 2 if-then statements, and the conclusion then is a third one. So it's saying if P then Q, so I have if this P happens, then Q will happen. If Q happens, so notice I'm picking up where I left off here, then R will happen. So then I can make the conclusion if P, then R. So if you get a job, then you will earn money. The second statement has to start with this then. If you earn money, then you will buy a car. So my valid conclusion using law of syllogism is if you get a job, then you will buy a car. So determine which statement follows logically from this given statement. If Jamal finishes his homework, then he will go out with his friends. If Jamal goes out with his friends, then he will go to the movies. So my valid conclusion is if Jamal finishes, so I start with my first if, his homework, then he will go out to the movies. So notice I started with my if, and then I had a then, he will go with his friends. Then I begin this statement with this then. So this goes right into here. So I have if, this, then here, and then that goes to here, which is the same thing, and here. So I start then with my start and end with my finish. Right? If your alarm clock goes off in the morning, then you will get out of bed. If you ride a bus, notice I'm not starting this one with the then statement as my if. So this is not a valid conclusion because I'm not following the law of syllogism. I needed to start this with if you get out of bed, then you go to work. And if alarm goes off, then you go to work would be the valid conclusion then. So we're going to use either one. Draw a valid conclusion from the given statements if possible. Then state whether your conclusion was drawn using law of detachment or law of syllogism. If I can't draw one, then I'm going to say there's no conclusion. So if it snows more than 5 inches, school will be closed. It snows 7 inches. So notice this condition was met. So I can make the valid conclusion that, so my conclusion is that school will be closed. So the reason I can make that was because the if came true. So this is law of detachment. That I used. Remember, law of syllogism has to have 3 if-then statements. 2 should start off with. So, if a children's movie is playing on Saturday, Janine will take her sister Jill to the movie. Janine always buys Jill popcorn at the movies. So notice I took the then, or if Jill goes to the movie, then they will buy Jill popcorn. If Janine goes to the movie. If a children's movie is playing Saturday, Jill will get popcorn. So this is law of syllogism because I have 3 if-then statements. And I took the then here. Jill goes to the movies. Then Janine will always buy popcorn. And then so I took the if here to the then there. So that would be law of syllogism. All right, that is that lesson. If you have any questions, let me know.